You'll be fine. Learn to live small.
He thought I had nothing. He never really saw me. You never asked where the money came from, Grant.
I thought it was ours. I was wrong.
He didn't shout, he didn't hesitate. Grant Sullivan stood in the doorway, keys in hand, and told his wife she'd be fine if she finally learned how to live small. Then he walked out to meet the woman he once swore meant nothing. Hours later, Natalie Brooks Sullivan opened their joint account and felt her chest tighten. Balance. Zero. He hadn't just left her. He had taken everything he thought she had. What Grant didn't know was simple. The woman he walked away from wasn't broke. She had been quietly building a $50 million empire behind his back, and she wasn't about to stay small. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 weeks earlier, everything still looked normal. The house was quiet that morning, not empty, just still in a way that felt comfortable, predictable. Natalie sat at the small dining table with her laptop open, a cup of coffee cooling beside her. From the outside, it looked simple. A modest home, a woman working from home, a routine life. That was exactly how she wanted it. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, eyes scanning numbers, charts, and messages stacked across multiple tabs. One tab showed supplier updates. Another tracked inventory across 3 states. A third held a pending decision from an investor waiting on her approval. Everything was moving at once, and she was in control of all of it. Her phone buzzed, softly. She didn't look at it right away. She finished reviewing a projection line, adjusted a percentage, then leaned back slightly. Only then did she check the message. It was from Melissa Grant, her production manager. Shipment ready. Need final approval before noon. Natalie typed back in seconds, approved. Release batch 3. Her tone was calm, direct, no hesitation. A second message followed immediately. This one from Richard Monroe. We need your decision on the equity offer this week. $5 million for 10%. Deadline approaching. Natalie's eyes lingered on that one for a moment longer. Not because she was unsure, but because timing mattered. For everything she did had to stay invisible. A soft metallic click echoed through the house, the front door. Grant was home. Natalie's entire posture shifted in a second. Tabs closed. Charts disappeared. The investor email minimized. In its place, a simple spreadsheet appeared. Household expenses, grocery lists, utility bills. By the time Grant stepped into the room, she looked like someone tracking monthly spending. Not someone running multiple companies. Hey, he said, dropping his keys on the counter. His voice was easy, relaxed, like nothing in his world ever demanded more than what he was willing to give. Natalie glanced up and smiled gently. You're back early. Shift got cut, he replied, loosening his tie. They're changing schedules again. He walked past her without looking too closely at the screen. He never did. That had always been part of the balance. He believed what he saw, and she made sure he saw exactly what she wanted him to. Busy day? He asked, opening the fridge. Just the usual, she said. The usual. He smiled at that, almost amused. You and your little projects. Little. The word didn't sting anymore, not the way it used to. Natalie had heard it enough times that it had lost its edge. Little work, little income, little impact. That was how he saw her. That was how she let him see her. Did you handle the credit card? He asked casually. Yes, she said without hesitation. He nodded, satisfied, like the answer was expected, like she would always take care of things that didn't matter to him. That was the dynamic. He handled what looked important. She handled what actually was. Grant leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. His attention drifted quickly, never staying long on anything. Natalie watched him for a second, not with suspicion, not yet, just observation. There had been small changes lately, nothing dramatic, just distance. He checked his phone more often. He smiled at messages he didn't share. He spoke less but laughed more, just not with her. Everything okay? She asked lightly. Yeah, he said too quickly. Just work stuff. She nodded. She didn't push. Natalie never reacted too soon. That had always been her strength. She watched first, understood second, acted last. Her laptop buzzed again. She froze for a fraction of a second. Another message from Richard Monroe. We can't hold this offer much longer. She closed the notification immediately. Grant didn't notice. He rarely noticed anything that didn't involve him directly. "You always look so serious when you're typing," he said, walking behind her and resting a hand briefly on her shoulder. "Like you're running some big company or something." The irony almost made her smile. "Just numbers," she said softly. "Cute," he replied, leaning down to kiss the top of her head before walking away. "Cute." Natalie stared at the spreadsheet on her screen. He had no idea. Not about the contracts, not about the revenue, not about the employees who depended on her decisions every single day. He didn't know she could clear their entire joint account 10 times over without touching even a fraction of what she actually owned. And he didn't know why she had chosen to live this way. For Natalie, it had never been about hiding for fun. It was protection. She had seen what money did to people. How quickly respect turned into expectation. How love could shift into transaction the moment numbers got involved. So she built everything quietly under her maiden name, separate accounts, separate entities, separate identity. She wanted one thing to be real, her marriage. Grant turned off the kitchen light and headed toward the hallway. "I'm going to shower," he said. "Long day." Natalie nodded again. But as he walked away, his phone lit up on the counter for just a second. Just long enough. A name flashed across the screen. Vanessa, no last name, just Vanessa. The phone buzzed again and again. Grant came back faster this time, grabbing it before the fourth buzz finished. His expression shifted for a split second before smoothing out. "Work," he said quickly, slipping the phone into his pocket. Natalie didn't respond. She just watched him. Something small and cold settled in her chest. Not panic, not yet. Just awareness. The kind that didn't go away once it started. Grant turned his back to her, already typing, already somewhere else. And for the first time, Natalie realized something quiet but dangerous. He wasn't paying attention. Not to her, not to the life they had built. Not to the woman sitting right in front of him, which meant he also wasn't paying attention to what he might lose. Natalie slowly closed her laptop. The screen went dark, but her mind didn't. Because somewhere between that flashing name and the way he avoided her eyes, a thought surfaced, clear and steady. If something was changing, she would see it before it was too late. Behind her, the bathroom door closed. And in the silence that followed, Grant's phone buzzed again from Vanessa. The phone kept buzzing even after Grant disappeared into the bathroom. Natalie didn't move right away. She stayed seated, hands resting lightly on the laptop, eyes fixed on the empty space, where his phone had been just seconds earlier. Vanessa. The name lingered, not saved with a last name, not labeled as works. Just a first name, casual and familiar. The kind of name you didn't need to explain. The kind of name that didn't belong in a marriage that was supposed to be simple and honest. Water started running in the bathroom, a steady sound, loud enough to cover anything. Natalie exhaled slowly. Then she stood, not rushed, not panicked, controlled. She walked to the kitchen counter where Grant had left his keys earlier. The space felt colder now, different, like something had shifted just enough to be felt, but not yet fully seen. His phone wasn't there anymore. Of course it wasn't. He had taken it with him. That alone told her everything she needed to know. Grant had never been protective of his phone before. He left it around, unlocked, face up, careless. That had changed. And change always came with a reason. Natalie returned to her chair, but she didn't reopen her laptop right away. Instead, she leaned back slightly, letting the silence settle around her. She didn't jump to conclusions. She never had. But she also didn't ignore patterns. That was the difference between reacting and understanding. And right now something was forming. A small fracture. Not loud enough to break anything yet, but enough to weaken the structure. Her phone buzzed again. Melissa Grant. Shipment confirmed. Trucks leaving in 2 hours. Natalie blinked, grounding herself. Work, that's something she could control. She picked up the phone and typed quickly. Good. Monitor arrival times. Flag any delays. Another message came in before she could set it down. Patricia Collins, we need to review supplier pricing tomorrow. Potential shift in margins. Natalie's mind shifted gears instantly. Numbers, decisions, strategy, she replied. Set it for 9 a.m. I'll be there. The words felt normal, familiar, solid. Her real world. The one Grant didn't see, the one he didn't understand, the one he would never imagine she was holding together while sitting at this small table in a quiet house. The water in the bathroom shut off. Natalie placed her phone face down. Her shoulders relaxed just slightly. By the time Grant walked back out, towel around his neck, she was already back in position, focused on the harmless spreadsheet. Dinner plans, he asked casually. Like nothing had happened. Whatever you want, she said. He shrugged. I might head out later. Some guys from work. The lie came easily, too easily. Natalie looked up at him. Late? Probably, he said, not meeting her eyes. Don't wait up. She nodded. Was it. No questions, no accusations. But something inside her adjusted. Not broken, not yet, just recalibrated. Grant grabbed his jacket and checked his phone again. His thumb moved quickly across the screen, typing, smiling faintly at whatever he saw. Then he looked up, caught her watching, and slipped the phone into his pocket. Work, he repeated. Natalie gave a small smile. Of course. He left not long after. The door closed with a soft click, and the house fell into silence again. This time it didn't feel comfortable. It felt empty. Natalie sat still for a moment longer. Then she reached for her laptop and reopened the tabs she had hidden earlier. The dashboard came back to life instantly. Revenue projections, supply chain data, legal documents waiting for signature. Her world, untouched, unaffected, for now. She stared at the numbers, but her focus wasn't on them anymore. It was on the shift she had just witnessed. Grant wasn't just distant, he was hiding something. And hiding required effort. Effort left traces. Natalie clicked into another window, not her business dashboard. Something else, their joint finances. She didn't open the account fully. Not yet. Instead, she checked recent activity summaries. Nothing unusual at first glance. Bills paid, groceries, small expenses, normal patterns. But she didn't trust surface-level normal. She had learned that lesson long ago. Her eyes scanned slower this time, more carefully, looking for anything that didn't belong, or anything that felt off. A small transaction caught her attention, not large, not alarming, but unfamiliar, a payment at a restaurant she didn't recognize. She clicked on it, date, time, location. Her chest tightened just slightly. That was the night Grant said he worked late. The amount wasn't the problem. The context was 2 meals, wine, dessert, not a work dinner, not the kind he ever described. Natalie leaned back again, letting the information settle. She didn't confront him, or not yet, because one detail didn't mean everything, but it meant something. And something was enough to start watching more closely. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Natalie frowned slightly. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something made her open it. You deserve better. That was it. No name, no explanation. Just one sentence. Her pulse slowed, not from fear, from focus. Someone knew something. Someone had seen something, and instead of staying silent, they had reached out. Natalie stared at the message for a long moment. Then she saved the number. No reply. Not yet. She placed the phone down carefully. The house felt different now. Not quiet, not empty, watchful, like something was unfolding just beneath the surface. Natalie turned back to her laptop, but instead of business reports, she opened a blank document. She started writing dates, transactions, observations, nothing emotional. Just facts, because facts didn't change, facts didn't lie. If something was wrong, she would see it clearly. And when she saw it clearly, she would decide what to do next. Outside, the sky darkened slowly. Inside, the glow of her screen reflected in her eyes. Calm, focused, not broken, not confused, just aware. The front door didn't open that night. Grant didn't come home, no message, no call, nothing. By midnight, the silence had turned heavy. By 2 a.m., it felt deliberate. Natalie sat on the couch, phone in her hand, staring at the blank screen. She called once. Voicemail. She didn't call again, because this wasn't an accident. This was a choice. At 4 a.m, the door finally opened. Grant stepped inside, moving quietly, like he didn't want to wake anyone, like he didn't want to explain anything. Natalie stood up. He didn't even pause. Stop being dramatic, he said, dropping his keys into the bowl. The words landed harder than anything else that night. Not the absence, not the silence, that dismissal. Like her question didn't matter, or like she didn't matter. He walked past her without another word. The faint scent of something unfamiliar followed him, light, floral. Not hers. Natalie didn't move. She stood there, breathing slowly, feeling something inside her shift again. Not pain, not yet, or clarity. Behind her, her phone buzzed once more. A notification, bank alert. Unusual activity detected on your joint account. Natalie looked down at the screen, and this time she opened it. Natalie's thumb hovered over the notification for a second longer than it should have. Then she tapped it. The banking app opened instantly, the screen loading with quiet efficiency. No drama, no warning sounds, just numbers. Cold, precise, unemotional. Her eyes went straight to the transaction log. There it was, a withdrawal. Not large enough to trigger immediate panic, but large enough to stand out $1,200. Cash withdrawal in person. Natalie didn't blink. She just stared at it, letting her breathing slow. Then she scrolled. Another one. $850. Also in person. Her chest tightened, not from fear but from recognition. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. Grant never withdrew cash like this. He used cards, apps, quick payments. He hated the inconvenience of going into a bank branch. So why now? Natalie set her phone down on the table, then picked it up again. She checked the timestamps, 3 days apart. Both during hours he had claimed to be working. Her mind moved quickly, assembling pieces without rushing to conclusions. Pattern, intent, timing. She stood up and walked quietly into her home office, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The shift was immediate. The calm wife disappeared. The strategist took over. Natalie sat at her desk and opened her laptop again. This time, she didn't hide anything. She moved through her system with practiced speed, pulling up not just personal banking but cross-references. She didn't need access to Grant's private accounts. She just needed alignment, dates, locations, spending patterns. Her eyes scanned across multiple windows at once. She wasn't looking for emotion. She was looking for truth. Her phone buzzed it again. Andrew Foster. The bank representative she had spoken to once before when setting up alerts. Natalie hesitated for only a moment before calling. He answered on the second ring. "Good morning, this is Andrew." "Hi, this is Natalie Sullivan," she said, voice steady. "I need to confirm a couple of recent withdrawals from my joint account. Of course, Mrs. Sullivan. Let me pull that up." The sound of typing filled the line. Natalie leaned back in her chair, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. "Okay," Andrew said. "I see the transactions you're referring to." "I didn't authorize them," Natalie said calmly. "Can you tell me how they were processed?" A brief pause. "They were completed in person at one of our branches," he replied. "Identification matched your husband's credentials on file." There it was. No confusion. No error. Grant had done it himself. Natalie closed her eyes for half a second, not to block it out, to absorb it. "And the amounts?" she asked. $1,200 and $850, both withdrawn as cash. Natalie nodded even though he couldn't see her. "Thank you. Please document this call, of course." She ended the call and placed the phone down slowly. Her hands didn't shake, her breathing didn't break, but something inside her shifted again. Grant hadn't just lied. He had started moving money, carefully, as if he thought she would notice, as if he thought there was nothing to notice. Natalie turned back to her screen and opened a blank file. She started logging everything. Date, amount, location. Her typing was steady, methodical, not emotional, because this wasn't about reacting anymore. This was about building a record. A few minutes later, she stood up again and walked back into the living room. Grant was still asleep. He hadn't even bothered to check if she had stayed up. The same man who used to text her if he was 10 minutes late now walked in at dawn and went straight to bed. Natalie watched him for a moment. Not with anger, not yet, just clarity. Then she turned away. Back in the kitchen, she gathered the receipts from the small tray near the counter. Grocery slips, gas purchases, routine expenses. She sorted through them carefully. Then she paused. There it was again. Another receipt she hadn't seen before. Same restaurant as the earlier charge, different date. Wine, 2 entrees, dessert. Natalie exhaled slowly. Now the pattern wasn't just financial, it was personal. She placed the receipt down and pulled out her phone again. This time she didn't open the banking app. She opened a notes file. She added it to the list. Same location, repeated visits, cash withdrawals nearby. Her mind connected the dots without needing to say the words out loud. Grant wasn't just hiding money. He was funding something. Someone. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The same one from before. A new message appeared. Check the restaurant on Pine Street. You'll understand. Natalie stared at the screen. No greeting, no explanation. Just direction. She didn't reply. Instead, she opened her laptop again and searched the address. The restaurant came up instantly. High-end. Reservations required. Not Grant's style. Not something he ever chose when they went out. Natalie clicked into the details, reviews, photos, location. Then she saw it. Posted publicly just hours ago. Her breath slowed. Grant, sitting at a corner table, smiling, across from him, Vanessa. The same name from his phone, the same name that kept appearing. The image wasn't blurry, it wasn't hidden, it was clear, intentional. Natalie leaned back in her chair. This wasn't suspicion anymore, this was confirmation. But even then, she didn't cry, or didn't break, didn't confront. Instead, she reached for her printer. One by one, she printed the bank statements, then the transaction logs, then the screenshot of the restaurant listing, then the photo. The machine hummed quietly, cash cage stacking neatly on top of the last. Paper didn't lie, evidence didn't change, and Natalie trusted both more than she trusted words. When she finished, she placed everything into a single folder, closed it, and set it on her desk. A small, controlled action, but it meant something. She wasn't ignoring this. She wasn't pretending. She was preparing. In the bedroom, Grant shifted in his sleep, completely unaware. He still believed he was in control. He still believed she didn't see. He still believed she had nothing. Natalie looked toward the hallway, her expression calm, almost unreadable. Then she turned back to her laptop. A new message appeared on her screen. Not from the bank. Not from her unknown contact. From Patricia Collins. We need your authorization on a financial review. Something flagged in personal account transfers linked to your name. Natalie's fingers paused over the keyboard. Personal account transfers. Linked to her name. Her eyes narrowed slightly. The timing wasn't random. Nothing ever was. She clicked the message open and realized this wasn't just about what Grant had already taken. It was about what he might be trying to find next. The number didn't shock her anymore, it confirmed her. 0. Natalie stood in the quiet kitchen, the glow of her phone casting a pale reflection across her face. For a second, she didn't move, not because she was frozen, but because she needed the silence to settle into something real. This wasn't a mistake. Grant had taken everything. Not the empire she had hidden, not the companies, not the accounts under Brooks. Just the one place where she had allowed trust to exist. And he emptied it without hesitation. Her jaw tightened slightly. So this was the plan. Not just cheating, not just lying. Leaving prepared, she exhaled slowly, then locked phone and set it down. No panic, no tears, just clarity. Behind her, the bedroom door creaked open. Grant walked out like nothing had happened, stretching his arms, his expression casual, almost bored. He didn't even look at her at first. He went straight to the fridge, opened it, grabbed a bottle of water. Morning, he said, like the word meant something. Natalie turned to face him, her voice stayed level. You went to the bank yesterday? Grant paused for half a second, barely noticeable. Then he shrugged. Yeah, needed some cash. How much? He twisted the cap off the bottle and took a sip, avoiding her eyes. Nothing big. Why? Natalie watched him carefully, measured him. He didn't even try to sound convincing. That was the part that hurt more than the lie. The assumption that she wouldn't question it. Grant froze. Just for a moment. Then he let out a short laugh. Relax. I moved some money around. $22,000? Natalie asked quietly. Now he looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Not guilt, annoyance. Why are you checking like that, he said. It's our account, our. The word landed wrong. Natalie held his gaze. It was, she said. Silence stretched between them. Grant's shoulders stiffened. He set the bottle down harder than necessary. I told you I moved it. I needed it. For what? Another pause. This time longer. Then he shook his head like she was being unreasonable. Why does it matter? I'm handling it. Natalie didn't raise her voice. Didn't step closer. She just stood there, grounded. It matters because you didn't tell me, she said. It matters because you took everything without a conversation. Grant scoffed. You're acting like I stole from you. Natalie didn't answer right away. Because that was exactly what he had done. But she wasn't ready to say it yet, not like this, not without everything in place. Instead, she stepped back, a small movement, but deliberate. I just wanted the truth, she said. Grant ran a hand through his hair, already losing patience. You're overthinking it. It's not a big deal, not a big deal. Natalie nodded slowly. Then she turned away. That was the first boundary. She didn't argue, didn't chase, didn't try to fix something he had already broken. Behind her, Grant muttered something under his breath and grabbed his keys. I've got to go, he said. Work's been crazy. She didn't respond. The front door closed. And just like that, he was gone again. Natalie stood alone in the kitchen, the silence heavier than before. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of information. She walked back to her office and closed the door, locked it. Then she sat down and opened her laptop. The corporate dashboard loaded instantly. 5 companies, multiple revenue streams, pending approvals, her world, the real one. A message flashed at the top of the screen. Patricia Collins. Urgent, possible financial overlap flagged. Need confirmation. Natalie clicked it open. A detailed report unfolded. Transfers, dates, amounts. Her personal transfers into the joint account. Clean, consistent, predictable. Then new activity layered over it. Withdrawals, cash, irregular timing. Patricia had already mapped it. Not emotionally or professionally. So this wasn't just a personal issue anymore. It had touched the structure Natalie built to protect herself. Natalie leaned forward slightly. "Send me the full trace," she typed. The response came almost instantly, already preparing it. Of course she was. Patricia never waited to be told twice. Natalie switched screens and pulled up another file, her own records, the ones she had been quietly keeping for years. Not because she expected this exact moment, but because she understood patterns. Grant had always been careful, but not disciplined. And discipline was what separated survival from exposure. She opened a timeline, started aligning it: bank withdrawals, restaurant visits, work excuses. Everything began to sit in place, not chaotic. Structured, intentional. This wasn't impulsive behavior. This was a transition from one life to another, funded by her. Not a phone buzzed, unknown number again. This time, no hesitation. She opened it. He's planning to leave. Soon. Her fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Then another message came. "He thinks you don't have anything." Natalie stared at the screen. That part almost made her smile. Almost, because it was true. That was exactly what he thought, that she was small, dependent, replaceable. Her gaze shifted back to her laptop, to the numbers, to the systems, to the reality he had never bothered to understand. She typed a short reply. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, paused, then disappeared. No answer. Natalie didn't push. She didn't need the identity yet. She needed the information, and she was already getting enough. A soft chime sounded from her laptop. New email. Richard Monroe. Subject: final approval needed. Equity offer expires tonight. Natalie clicked it open. $5 million for 10%. A clean deal, time sensitive. Any other day, this would have been her focus. Today, it barely registered. Not because it wasn't important, but because something else had crossed into her space. Something personal. Something that had underestimated her. She closed the email without replying, then opened a new one to Victor Lawson, her lawyer. She didn't write much, just one line. "I need to review options regarding financial misconduct within a joint marital account." She stared at the message for a second, then hit send. No emotion, just action. This was the second boundary. Not spoken, not visible, but irreversible. Outside, the day moved on like nothing had changed. Cars passed, people walked, the world stayed normal. But inside that house, inside that quiet office, everything had shifted. Natalie stood up and walked to the window. Her reflection looked calm. Too calm for someone who had just been betrayed. But that was the difference. She wasn't reacting, she was recalibrating. Behind her, her laptop chimed again. Patricia had sent the full trace. Natalie turned back and opened it. And that was when she saw it. Not just the withdrawals, not just the pattern, but the destination, an address, a lease payment, funded directly from the joint account. Her money, her transfers, used for something she had never approved. Natalie's eyes narrowed slightly. She clicked deeper. Tenant name Vanessa Holloway. There it was, clear, undeniable. Grant hadn't just been seeing her, he had been building something with her, using Natalie's money. A new life. Natalie leaned back slowly, her breathing steady, her mind sharper than ever. Now she knew not just that he was leaving, but how and who he was choosing. Her phone buzzed again. "Victor Lawson, call me immediately." Natalie picked it up. And for the first time since the account hit zero, her next move was no longer quiet. The silence didn't last long. It never did when humiliation went public. Natalie's phone buzzed again as she stood in her office, still holding on to the weight of what she had just uncovered. She already knew it wasn't another bank alert. It wasn't Victor either. It was louder than that. More careless, she unlocked the screen. A social media notification, tagged post. Her name wasn't written, but she didn't need it to be. The image filled her screen before she could even brace herself. Grant stood there, smiling like a man who had just won something. His arm wrapped tightly around Vanessa Holloway. Her head leaned into his shoulder, her expression soft, almost triumphant. They looked comfortable, familiar, like this wasn't new. The caption sat beneath the photo like a blade. "Second chances are worth it." Natalie didn't blink, didn't scroll. She just stared. The comments came next. They always did. Finally back with your real love. You two look perfect together. About time you left that boring wife. Natalie's fingers tightened slightly around her phone. Boring, that was the word they chose. Not kind, or not loyal, not steady. Boring. Her throat tightened, but she didn't let the emotion rise any higher than that. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was presentation. Grant hadn't just left her. He had replaced her publicly. He had turned her into a footnote in his story, a mistake corrected, a chapter erased. Her chest felt hollow for a moment. Not broken, just emptied. Then something colder settled in. Clarity again. She set the phone down slowly on her desk. Or not face down, face up. Let it stay there, let it exist, let it be part of the record. Because that's what this was now. A record, not a memory. Her laptop chimed softly. Patricia again, new file attached. Natalie opened it without hesitation. The audit had moved faster, deeper, more precise. Transactions layered over each other like threads pulled too tight. Dates aligned, withdrawals mapped. Then the cross-reference appeared. Every dollar that left the joint account had a destination, and it all led to the same place. Vanessa. Apartment deposit, furniture payments, utilities, even smaller purchases, groceries, decor, weekend expenses. Not random, not scattered, structured. Natalie leaned back slowly. He didn't just cheat, he relocated, and he funded it with her money. Her lips pressed together, not in anger, in understanding. This was intentional, planned, calculated. Her phone buzzed again, different notification. A direct message. She opened it. It was from someone she didn't recognize, but the last name made her pause. Holloway, Olivia Holloway, Vanessa's sister. Natalie stared at the message. For a second, she considered ignoring it, but something told her not to. She opened it. I didn't know how to reach you. I'm sorry. You deserve to know the truth. Natalie's breathing stayed steady. She typed back. What truth? The reply came quickly this time. They've been together for months. Natalie didn't react. Not outwardly, not physically, but inside something shifted, not shock. Confirmation, Olivia continued. He told her you had nothing, or that you depended on him, that leaving you would be easy. Natalie closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them again, her gaze sharpened. Grant hadn't just underestimated her. He had rewritten her, reduced her, or made her small so he could justify walking away. Another message appeared. He used your money for everything. Vanessa thinks it's his. Natalie's jaw tightened slightly. Of course she did. Why wouldn't she? Grant had given her a version of reality that made him look powerful, and Natalie invisible. She typed slowly. Why are you telling me this? There was a pause. Then because I saw what he did, and I saw what he was planning. Natalie leaned forward slightly. Planning? Another pause, longer this time. Then the message came. He's not done taking from you. Natalie's fingers stilled on the keyboard. That was new. That was different. That wasn't about the past. That was about what was coming next. Her mind moved quickly, too quickly for fear to catch up. Grant had already drained the joint account, already moved into a new place, already gone public. What else could he possibly take? Unless, her eyes flicked back to her laptop, or to the audit, to the systems, to the quiet connections between her personal life and her business world. There were very few designs, but not zero. Never zero, Natalie typed again. What do you mean? The typing dots appeared, or stopped, started again. Then finally he asked Vanessa if you had other accounts. Bigger ones. Natalie's breath slowed. That matched what the bank had said. Grant had gone further than just taking what he saw. He had searched, pushed, expected more. Which meant one thing. He believed she was hiding something, but not enough to be dangerous, just enough to be useful. Natalie's lips parted slightly. He was guessing, not knowing. That difference mattered. That difference was everything. Her phone went quiet. No more messages. But the damage was done, or maybe not damage, exposure. She leaned back in her chair, her mind settling into a sharper, colder place. Grant thought he had taken everything. Vanessa thought she had gained something. And the world watching online thought Natalie had lost. But none of them understood the scale of what they were standing next to, or how close they were to stepping into something they couldn't control. Her laptop chimed again. New alert. Internal system, approval request pending. Natalie clicked it open. Large, confidential. A distribution expansion that would double one of her company's revenue streams. And at the bottom, approval required. Natalie Brooks, not Sullivan, Brooks. Her real name, her real position, or her real power. She stared at it for a moment, then closed it. Not yet, Not until everything aligned, not until every piece was because once she moved openly, there was no going back, no more hiding, or no more pretending to be small. Her phone buzzed one last time. Victor Lawson. "I've reviewed what you sent. We need to act fast." Natalie picked it up. Her voice calm. "Tell me." Victor didn't hesitate. "If what you're saying is accurate, this isn't just marital misconduct. This is fraud. And if he's trying to access anything beyond the joint account, we need to protect you immediately." Natalie looked out the window, her reflection steady, controlled. "I already started documenting everything," she said. "I know," Victor replied, "which is why we have an advantage. But we need to move before he realizes that." Natalie's eyes narrowed slightly. "He already suspects there's more," she said. Victor paused. "Then we're on a clock." Silence settled between them for a moment. Not uncertain, just precise. "File whatever we need," she said, "but don't contact him yet." Victor didn't question it, understood. She ended the call, then sat still. For the first time since the post, since the comments, since the humiliation spread beyond her walls, she allowed herself one thought. Not strategic. If Grant was already looking for more, then he was about to find something. Just not what he expected. Her screen flickered again. Patricia's final update came through. All flagged transactions confirmed, funds traceable, legal action viable. Natalie read the line twice, then closed the file and reached for a blank document, because the next move wouldn't be reactive. It would be written, and as she placed her fingers on the keyboard, one realization settled in completely. Grant thought he had taken everything, but in reality, he had just given her everything she needed to end him. And this time she wasn't going to stay quiet. Natalie didn't rush. That was the difference between reacting and controlling. The moment the message was written, the moment the legal path was opened, she slowed everything else down. Not out of hesitation, but precision. Her office felt quieter than usual, not peaceful, focused. The laptop screen still glowed in front of her, rows of data, contracts, approvals waiting for her decision. The empire she had built didn't pause just because her personal life collapsed. It moved. It expected her to move with it, and she did. Natalie logged into her internal system fully this time, not the reduced version she used when Grant was home. The real dashboard expanded across her screen: company performance, legal files, investment summaries, pending board-level approvals. 5 companies, 17 active trademarks, multiple licensing deals, all under one controlling structure, all under her. A quiet, invisible architecture Grant had never even tried to understand. Her phone buzzed again. Patricia Collins. "We've flagged everything," Patricia said the moment Natalie answered. Her voice was calm, but there was a sharpness underneath it. "Every withdrawal tied to the joint account has been mapped. It's clean." Natalie leaned back slightly in her chair. "How clean?" "Enough to prove intent," Patricia replied. "He wasn't just spending, he was redirecting funds, and it all leads back to Vanessa Holloway." Natalie's eyes moved back to the audit report. "I saw the lease," she said. "There's more," Patricia added. Natalie stilled. "Go on." "Recurring payments," Patricia continued. "Utilities, subscriptions, grocery deliveries. It's consistent. He didn't just move in with her, he's maintaining that life using your transfers." Natalie exhaled slowly. So it wasn't temporary, it wasn't careless, it was structured. "Send everything to Victor," she said. Already done. Of course she had. Natalie closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again. "Good," she said. She ended the call. No wasted words, no emotional spill. Just movement. Her laptop chimed again. Another incoming file, this time from Victor Lawson. "Subject: preliminary legal strategy." Natalie opened it. It wasn't long. Victor didn't write long messages unless he had to. But every line mattered. Financial misconduct, marital asset dissipation, potential fraud exposure, legal recovery options, and then immediate recommendation: secure all independent assets, limit exposure, or prepare for escalation. Natalie read that line twice: secure all independent assets. That was the part Grant didn't understand, the part he couldn't even imagine. There were no accounts under her married name beyond what she allowed. No shared ownership in her companies. No access points. Everything that mattered sat under Natalie Sullivan, not Sus Natalie. That separation had once felt like caution. Now it felt like protection. Her phone buzzed again, a text this time. Grant. She stared at the name for a moment before opening it. "We need to talk tonight." Natalie didn't respond immediately. Of course he did. Now that the money was gone. Now that his version of control had been exercised, he wanted a conversation. She typed back. About what? The reply came fast. Don't play dumb. Natalie's lips pressed together slightly. Still the same tone. Still the same assumption. She locked the phone and set it aside. She would talk to him, but not tonight, or not on his terms. Her attention shifted back to her screen, to the pending approval request from Richard Monroe. $5 million for 10%. A clean deal, time-sensitive. Natalie hovered over the approval button. This was what her life looked like outside of Grant. Decisions that moved millions, structures that influenced markets, a scale he had never even considered. Her finger tapped once. Approved. The system confirmed instantly. Transaction pending final documentation. Natalie leaned back. That was one piece of her life secured. Now she turned to the other. She opened a new folder. Personal. Inside it, documents she had started organizing the moment the first withdrawal didn't feel right. Bank statements, transaction logs, screenshots. Everything lined up, everything time-stamped, everything quiet. Her preparation had never been emotional. It had been disciplined. That discipline was the only reason she wasn't standing in chaos now. Another message came through. Olivia Holloway. Natalie opened it. He's getting nervous. Natalie's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? She typed back. Because the account's unflagged. Natalie didn't respond right away. So he noticed. That was faster than she expected. Olivia sent another message. Vanessa's freaking out. She thinks it's a bank error. Natalie almost smiled. Of course she did. Because Vanessa believed the version of Grant that looked stable, reliable, in control, not the one who was already losing everything without realizing why. Natalie typed slowly. Don't tell them anything. Olivia's reply came quickly. I won't. Then another message followed. But he's asking questions about you. Natalie's fingers stilled. That mattered. Not because she was afraid, but because timing mattered. What kind of questions? She typed. The reply came after a pause. He thinks you're hiding something. Natalie leaned back in her chair. There it was again. That instinct, that suspicion. Grant didn't know, but he was starting to feel it. The gap between what he believed and what was real. Natalie's gaze shifted to the reflection in her screen. Calm, controlled, invisible, that had always been her advantage, and she wasn't ready to lose it yet. Her phone rang. Victor, she answered. We need to move faster, he said immediately. No greeting, no build-up. The audit is solid. If we file now, we can freeze anything tied to those funds before he moves more. Natalie stood up and walked slowly toward the window. Do it, she said. There was a pause on the other end. You're sure? Yes. Victor exhaled. All right. Once we file, he'll know something's wrong. Natalie looked out at the city below. He read his pause. Then this changes everything, Natalie. She nodded slightly. I know. She ended the call. And just like that, the line had been crossed. Not emotionally, legally, strategically, irreversibly, her laptop chimed again. System notification. Internal compliance alert updated. Status. Escalated. Natalie walked back to her desk and sat down slowly. The process had started. Quiet, invisible, but unstoppable. Across the city, Grant was probably still believing he had the upper hand, that he had taken control, that he had walked away clean. Natalie looked at the audit one last time, then closed it. Because the next phase wouldn't be about watching, it would be about consequences. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a banking alert. She opened it. Account activity restricted pending review. Natalie's eyes didn't widen. Her breathing didn't change. But something inside her settled. It had begun. Somewhere Grant was about to realize something wasn't working, that his access wasn't what he thought it was, that the money he believed he controlled was no longer his to touch. Natalie set the phone down slowly. And for the first time since everything started, she allowed herself a single quiet thought. He thought he emptied her. But all he really did was expose himself. Grant didn't notice it at first, not immediately. He was too busy laughing. The apartment was warmer than Natalie's house. Brighter. Louder. Vanessa had music playing, something soft but expensive sounding, the kind of detail that made everything feel curated, intentional, like a life upgraded. Grant leaned back against the kitchen counter, watching Vanessa move around like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Relax, she said, glancing over her shoulder. You look like you're waiting for something bad to happen, he smirked. Why would I be? Vanessa shrugged lightly. You just walked away from a marriage and drained your joint account. Most people would be a little tense. Grant let out a quiet laugh. That wasn't a marriage anymore, he said. And that account? It was mine as much as hers. Vanessa didn't argue. She never did. That was part of why he stayed. So resistance, no questions, no quiet judgment like Natalie had started giving him in the last year. Instead, Vanessa walked closer, resting her hand lightly on his chest. You did what you had to do, she said softly. Grant nodded. Exactly. That was how he framed it. Not betrayal. Correction. He had carried the weight long enough. Paid the bills, built his career. Watched his wife sit at home pretending to work on things that never seemed to matter. Now he was done carrying someone else. Now he was choosing something better. His phone buzzed. Grant barely glanced at it. Then his expression shifted. Vanessa frowned slightly. Work? Grant straightened, unlocking his phone. No, he said slowly. His eyes moved across the screen. Notifications, bank alerts. Multiple, he tapped one. Transaction declined. He frowned. That's weird. What? Vanessa asked. Grant Pratt. Account access restricted. His brow tightened. That doesn't make sense. Vanessa stepped closer. What doesn't? Grant didn't answer right away. He opened his banking app. Or tried to. The screen loaded, then stopped. Error. He tried again. Same result. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. Probably just the system, he muttered. Vanessa watched him carefully now. You sure? Grant let out a breath. Yeah, happens sometimes. But his thumb moved faster now. Refreshing, retrying, switching networks, nothing. The same message stared back at him. Access temporarily restricted. Grant's jaw tightened. He stepped away from the counter, pacing slightly. Okay, that's not normal. Vanessa crossed her arms. Call them I will. He dialed quickly. The line rang, once, twice, then connected. Thank you for calling, a calm voice answered. This is Rebecca Turner. How can I assist you today? Grant exhaled. Yeah, I'm trying to access my account and it's saying it's restricted. There's got to be a mistake. There was a pause. Can I verify your identity first, sir? Grant went through the steps quickly, impatient. Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's me. Another pause. Longer this time. Vanessa shifted her weight, watching his face. Mr. Sullivan, Rebecca said carefully. Your account has been placed under review. Grant frowned. Review? For what? I'm not authorized to disclose full details, she replied. But there has been flagged activity that requires further verification. Grant let out a sharp breath. What kind of activity? I understand your concern, Rebecca said evenly. However, I recommend you contact your legal representative for more information. Grant froze slightly. My what? Your legal representative, she repeated. That's ridiculous, Grant snapped. I don't need a lawyer to access my own money. Vanessa's eyes flickered. Rebecca didn't react. I can assure you this process is standard under certain circumstances. What circumstances? Grant demanded. There was a brief silence. Then I'm not authorized to go into specifics. Grant's grip tightened around the phone. This is my account. Yes, sir, so unlock it. I'm afraid I can't do that at this time. Grant pulled the phone away for a second, staring at it like it had betrayed him, then brought it back. When will it be unlocked? I don't have a timeline available, Rebecca said. You will be notified once the review is complete. Grant's voice dropped. This is a mistake. I understand your frustration. No, you don't, he snapped. Vanessa stepped closer again, her voice quieter now. What's happening? Grant ended the call abruptly. His jaw was tight. They flagged the account. They won't say. Vanessa frowned. That's not normal. Grant shook his head. No, it's not. But something underneath that certainty was starting to crack. Because this didn't feel random. It didn't feel like a glitch. It felt targeted. He turned back to his phone, opening messages, scrolling. Looking for something, Natalie. He opened their last conversation. Her calm reply action. Her silence where he expected anger. Something about it suddenly felt wrong. Vanessa watched him carefully. You think she did something? She asked. Grant hesitated for a split second, then shook his head. No, too quickly. Vanessa didn't push, but the question lingered in the air anyway, because if Natalie had done something, then she wasn't who he thought she was. Grant rubbed his face, pacing again. Maybe it's just compliance, he said. Large transfers get flagged sometimes. Vanessa crossed her arms tighter now, all of them. Grant didn't answer, because he didn't know. And that was new. He had always known, always been the one in control, the one explaining things, the one making decisions. Now he was guessing. His phone buzzed again, another alert. He opened it. Pending transactions frozen. Grant went still. Every muscle tightened. Vanessa stepped closer. Grant. He didn't look at her. Didn't move, because something had just shifted. Not loudly, or not visibly, but undeniably, the money he had taken was no longer moving. It was stuck, and for the first time since he walked out that door, Grant Sullivan felt something he hadn't expected. Not anger, not frustration, uncertainty. Real, cold uncertainty. Vanessa's voice came softer now. What if this isn't a mistake? Grant didn't answer, because deep down he was starting to think the same thing. And somewhere else in the city, Natalie Brooks Sullivan was already 3 steps ahead of him. Or he just didn't know it yet. The next morning, Grant woke up earlier than usual, not because he wanted to, because he couldn't sleep. The apartment felt different now, smaller, tighter. The music was off. The light that had felt warm the night before now felt harsh, exposing everything. Vanessa was still asleep, turned away from him, her breathing steady, calm, unbothered. Grant stared at the ceiling for a long moment, then reached for his phone. No new notifications. That didn't help. He opened the banking app again. Still locked. Same message. Access restricted. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. His chest felt tight, not from panic yet, but from something building underneath it. Control slipping. That was what bothered him. Not the money itself. The loss of control. He got out of bed quietly, grabbed his jacket, and stepped into the living room. The silence there felt heavier. He dialed again. This time, a different number, Andrew Foster. The first representative he had spoken to weeks ago, when everything still made sense. The line rang, then clicked. Andrew Foster speaking. Grant exhaled. Yeah, this is Grant Sullivan. I need to understand what's going on with my account. There was a pause on the other end, not confusion. Recognition? Yes, Mr. Sullivan, Andrew said carefully. I was expecting your call. Grant's grip tightened. Good, then explain it. Another pause. Longer. I'm limited in what I can say, Andrew replied, voice lower now. But I can confirm this isn't a routine flag. Grant's jaw hardened. Then what is it? Andrew hesitated, then said there has been a formal review initiated regarding the source and ownership of certain funds. Grant blinked. Ownership? He repeated. Yes, that doesn't make any sense, Grant snapped. It's a joint account. Yes, sir, so I have full access. Another pause. Under normal circumstances. Grant's pulse ticked up. And these aren't normal circumstances. Andrew didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, you should speak with your legal representative as soon as possible. Grant's voice dropped. I don't have one. Another pause. You may want to reconsider that. The line went quiet. Then the call ended. Grant stared at the phone. For a moment, he didn't move. Ownership. The word sat wrong, uncomfortable. Like something he hadn't considered, or something he had chosen not to consider. Behind him, Vanessa's voice broke the silence. What did they say? Grant turned slightly. They're reviewing the account. For what? Ownership issues. Vanessa frowned, sitting up now. That doesn't just happen. Grant didn't respond, because he knew that. He had worked with accounts long enough to understand how systems moved. Flags didn't appear out of nowhere. Reviews didn't escalate this fast. Something triggered it, something deliberate. Vanessa watched him closely. Grant, what exactly did you transfer? He let out a breath. Everything in the joint account. How much? He hesitated, then said, Enough. Vanessa's expression shifted slightly. From where? She asked. Grant frowned. What do you mean? Was it all your income? The question landed harder than it should have. Grant straightened. Of course it was. Vanessa didn't answer right away. She just held his gaze, not accusing, but not agreeing either. And for the first time, something flickered in Grant's chest that wasn't frustration. It was doubt, small, sharp, unwelcome. He shook it off quickly. This is probably just a compliance issue, he said. It'll clear. Vanessa nodded slowly, but her eyes didn't fully relax. Okay, she said, then let it clear. But neither of them sounded convinced. Grant turned away, walking toward the window. The city outside looked the same as always. Busy, moving, indifferent. Nothing had changed out there. But something had shifted here, or inside. His phone buzzed again, a new message. Unknown number. He opened it. You should check where the money really came from. Grant's chest tightened. What is it? Vanessa asked. He didn't answer immediately, just stared at the screen. The message sat there. Simple, direct, uncomfortable. Probably spam, he muttered, locking the phone. But he didn't believe that. Not really. Vanessa studied him for another moment, then got out of bed. Come back to bed, she said softly. You're overthinking it. Grant forced a small nod. But he didn't move. because something in his mind had already started connecting pieces, fragments, moments he hadn't paid attention to before. Natalie sitting at her desk late at night, multiple screens, quiet phone calls she would step away to take, or emails she would close quickly when he walked past. At the time, it had annoyed him, felt unnecessary, like she was pretending to be busier than she was. Now it felt different. He pushed the thought away. No, that didn't make sense. Natalie didn't have that kind of money. She couldn't. He would have known, wouldn't he? Vanessa came up behind him, wrapping her arms lightly around his waist. "You're doing it again," she said, thinking too much. Grant let out a breath. Yeah. But his eyes stayed on the city, unfocused, because the certainty he had walked out with yesterday was starting to crack, slowly, quietly, and he didn't like what was underneath. His phone buzzed again. Another message. Same number. "You didn't just take money from your wife. You took money from something you don't understand." Grant's stomach dropped. This time he didn't dismiss it, didn't lock the screen. He stared at it, reading it again and again. Vanessa leaned slightly to see. "What does it say?" Grant hesitated, then turned the phone toward her. She read it, her expression changed, subtly, but enough. "That's not spam," she said quietly. Grant didn't answer, because he knew that now. The room felt colder, smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in overnight. Vanessa stepped back slightly, arms folding again. Grant, who else had access to that account? He didn't answer right away, because there was only one real answer. Natalie. And suddenly that answer didn't feel simple anymore. His phone vibrated again, but this time it wasn't a message, it was a call, unknown number. Grant stared at it for a long second, then answered. "Hello?" A calm voice responded. "Mr. Sullivan." Grant's grip tightened. "Yes, this is Victor Lawson." The name meant nothing. Yet, "I represent Natalie Brooks Sullivan." Grant went completely still. Vanessa's eyes snapped toward him. Victor continued, his tone steady. "I believe it's time we discuss the funds you transferred and the legal implications of that decision." Grant didn't breathe, because for the first time since he walked out, this didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a problem. A real one, and it had just found him. Grant didn't say anything for a long moment. Vanessa was watching him now. Not casually, not like before. Her posture had changed, straighter, alert. He turned slightly, lowering his voice. "What is this about?" he asked. Victor Lawson didn't rush to answer. "It's about the transfer you executed from the joint account you shared with my client," he said, "and whether you had the legal authority to treat those funds as solely yours." Grant felt something tighten in his chest. "I did," he said. "It was a joint account." "Yes," Victor replied calmly. "That part is not in dispute." Grant exhaled, almost relieved, but Victor continued. "What is in dispute is the origin of the funds within that account, and whether those funds were in fact jointly owned." The words landed slower this time. He frowned. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa stepped closer, trying to hear, but Grant turned slightly away. Victor didn't raise his voice. "In simple terms, Mr. Sullivan," he said, "there is significant evidence suggesting that a substantial portion of the funds you transferred were not derived from your income." Grant's grip on the phone tightened. "That's not true. Then I assume you can provide documentation showing the full source of all deposits into that account." Grant opened his mouth, closed it again, because suddenly he wasn't sure. Victor continued, steady, controlled. "My client has chosen not to escalate this matter immediately. That is why I am calling you directly." Grant swallowed. "Not escalate." At this stage, Victor said, "We are offering you the opportunity to cooperate voluntarily." Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she studied Grant's face. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means," Victor replied, "you return the funds that were improperly transferred, and we proceed through appropriate legal channels without filing additional claims." Grant felt the shift. The word improperly stayed with him. "You're saying I stole from my own account?" "I'm saying," Victor answered, "that the legal definition of ownership may not align with your assumption." Grant's chest tightened again. This time, it wasn't just discomfort, it was something colder. Fear. "I think you're overcomplicating this," Grant said, forcing his voice steady. "Natalie doesn't make that kind of money." There was a pause on the line, a quiet one. Not confusion, not hesitation, recognition. Victor spoke again. "Mr. Sullivan," he said, "I strongly recommend that you refrain from making assumptions about my client's financial position." Grant's jaw clenched. "She works from home. She does freelance projects." Another pause. Longer this time. Then calmly, That is not an accurate representation of her professional capacity. Grant's pulse jumped. Vanessa's gaze sharpened. What does that mean? She whispered. Grant didn't answer. Because for the first time, he didn't have one. Victor continued, his tone unchanged. I will send you a formal notice outlining the next steps. You should retain legal counsel immediately. Grant swallowed hard, and if I don't? Another pause. Then this becomes significantly more complicated for you. The line went silent. Then the call ended. Grant stood there, phone still pressed to his ear long after the call had dropped. Vanessa stepped closer. What did he say? Grant lowered the phone slowly. He's Natalie's lawyer. Vanessa's expression shifted instantly. Her lawyer? He nodded. She's accusing me of taking money that wasn't mine. Vanessa let out a short breath, almost a laugh. That's ridiculous. It was a joint account, that's what I said. Then what's the issue? Grant hesitated. Because the answer didn't sound simple anymore. They're saying the money in it might not have been mine to begin with. Vanessa's face tightened. That doesn't make sense, I know. But where would it have come from? Grant didn't answer, because the thought had already started forming. And he didn't like it, at all. Vanessa crossed her arms. Grant, you told me she barely worked. I thought she didn't. You thought? He turned toward her, irritation flashing. She never talked about it. She never showed anything. She just sat at home with a laptop. Vanessa didn't look convinced. That doesn't mean she wasn't doing something. Grant shook his head. No, if she was making serious money, I would have known. Vanessa held his gaze. Would you? The question hit harder than he expected. He opened his mouth, then stopped, because something uncomfortable was surfacing again. Moments, details. Natalie declining invitations because of deadlines. Natalie correcting him casually on things he didn't think she should understand. Natalie paying bills sometimes before he even noticed they were due, quietly, efficiently, without explanation. At the time it had felt convenient, now it felt deliberate. Grant turned away, pacing once across the room. No, he said, more firmly this time. This is just a tactic. They're trying to scare me, Vanessa didn't argue. But she didn't agree either. Okay, she said slowly. Then what's the plan? Grant stopped. Because for the first time, he didn't have one. The silence stretched. Heavy, uncomfortable. Then his phone buzzed again. An email, legal firm, subject line. Formal notice of financial review and potential claim. Grant's stomach dropped. He opened it, scrolled, and froze. There were attachments, multiple transaction histories, detailed, precise. Highlighted entries he didn't recognize, transfers into the joint account. Large ones, irregular ones, not from his employer, not from any source he could immediately identify. He felt his chest tighten again. Vanessa stepped closer. What is it? Grant turned the screen toward her. She read. Her expression changed slowly, confusion first, then something sharper. Grant, this isn't your income. He didn't respond, because he could see that now, clear as day. And worse, he had never questioned it, or never asked, never checked, because he had assumed. Assumed it was his, assumed it didn't matter, assumed Natalie didn't matter. Vanessa looked up at him. Where did this come from? Grant didn't answer, because there was only one person who could. And suddenly that person didn't feel small anymore. His phone buzzed again. Another call, same number, Victor Lawson. Grant stared at it, longer this time, then answered. Yes? Victor's voice was calm as ever. I assume you've reviewed the preliminary documentation. Grant swallowed. Yes, then you understand the seriousness of the situation. Grant's voice dropped. Where did that money come from? There was a brief pause. Then Victor said something that made everything inside Grant go still. It came from entities your wife owns. Silence, complete, heavy. Grant didn't breathe. Vanessa's eyes widened as she watched him. What did he say? She whispered. Grant couldn't answer, because the words hadn't fully settled yet. Entities your wife owns, not works for, not assists. Owns, Victor continued. And Mr. Sullivan, this is only a portion. Grant's vision blurred slightly. A portion of what? Another pause. Then her portfolio. Grant's hand tightened around the phone. Because for the first time, the version of Natalie he had believed in was starting to collapse, and something far bigger was standing behind it, waiting to be seen. The courtroom felt quieter than it should have, not silent, just heavy. Grant sat at the table, hands clasped tightly in front of him, staring at the polished wood like it might give him answers he didn't want to hear. Across the room, Natalie sat beside Victor Lawson, her posture calm, her expression unreadable. She didn't look at him, not once. That bothered him more than anything. The judge, Benjamin Carter, reviewed the documents in front of him with steady focus. The evidence had been presented, the audit findings laid out in detail, transaction records, ownership structures, the layered accounts that all traced back to one truth Grant had refused to see. The money had never been his. Not really. Victor stood and spoke with quiet precision, summarizing what had already been established. Natalie Brooks Sullivan, he corrected himself internally. Natalie Brooks was the controlling owner of multiple private entities that had funded the majority of the joint account over the course of their marriage. Not freelance, not small. Structured investments, long-term contracts, quiet acquisitions. A system she had built piece by piece while living in the same house as him, while being dismissed by him. Grant's jaw tightened as the words settled again. She hadn't been hiding nothing. She had been hiding everything. The judge looked up. "Mr. Sullivan," he said evenly, "do you dispute the origin of the funds as presented?" Grant opened his mouth, then closed it, because there was nothing left to dispute. "No," he said finally. The word felt heavier than it should have. The judge nodded once. "Then the court recognizes that the funds transferred by you were not solely your property, and that the removal of those funds constitutes impropriation of marital assets under the circumstances presented." Grant's chest tightened. The words were formal, measured, but the meaning was simple. He had taken something that wasn't his, and now he had to give it back. "The court orders full restitution of the transferred funds," Judge Carter continued, "subject to verification and timeline, or as outlined by counsel." Grant nodded slowly. He didn't argue, didn't push back, because for the first time since he walked out that door weeks ago, he understood. Not just what he had done, but what he had lost. Vanessa sat a few rows behind him, alone. She hadn't spoken during the hearing, had barely looked at him. The confidence she had worn so easily before was gone now, replaced by something tighter, uneasy, because the investigation hadn't stopped at Grant. Patricia Collins' audit had traced the money further, into accounts linked to Vanessa, transfers that weren't just personal, but deliberate, structured, enough to raise questions that were now being reviewed separately. Grant didn't need to look back to know she was watching, but he didn't turn around, because whatever had been between them, it didn't feel real anymore. Just another assumption, another mistake. The judge closed the file. "This matter is resolved as to financial restitution," he said. "Any additional claims will proceed separately if filed." He paused, then added, "Court is adjourned." The gavel struck once, clean final. Grant sat there for a moment longer after everyone began to stand. He didn't move because standing meant accepting it. All of it, the loss, the exposure, the truth. When he finally did stand, it felt slower than usual. He turned slightly. Natalie was already gathering her things. Efficient, calm, untouched. Victor spoke quietly to her, handing her a document. She nodded once, signed something, then handed it back without hesitation. Grant watched her, really watched her, for the first time. Not as the version he had created, but as she actually was. Controlled, self-contained, someone who had never needed him to survive. He stepped forward before he could stop himself. "Natalie," she paused just slightly, then turned. Her expression was steady. Not cold, not angry, just "Das Nainu," he said quietly. "All this time." She held his gaze. "Yes," Grant swallowed. "And you didn't say anything, no." "Why?" The question came out sharper than he intended. Not accusing, just desperate. Natalie took a breath, because the answer wasn't simple. "I wanted to know if you respected me without it," she said. Grant's chest tightened, and she looked at him for a long moment, then said, "I got my answer." There was no anger in her voice. That made it worse. He shook his head slightly. "I didn't know," he said. "I thought." "What you two thought," she cut in, gently but firmly. That stopped him, because she did. Every assumption, every dismissal, every time he chose to believe she was smaller than she was. Natalie adjusted the strap of her bag. "You didn't lose money, Grant," she said quietly. "You lost something else first." He didn't ask what, because he already knew. Respect, trust, her. She stepped past him, not in a rush, not avoiding him, just moving forward. And this time she didn't look back. Grant stood there as she walked toward the exit, Victor beside her. The distance between them felt longer than the entire courtroom, because it wasn't just physical. It was everything he hadn't seen, or everything he had chosen not to see. Behind him, Vanessa shifted in her seat. He didn't turn, didn't want to, Because whatever that chapter had been, it was closing too, without anything left worth holding on to. Outside, the air felt different. Cooler, cleaner. Natalie stepped out of the building and paused for a moment, letting the sunlight settle over her. Victor handed her the final document. "All set," he said. She nodded. "Thank you." He gave a small, respectful nod in return before stepping away. Natalie looked down at the paper in her hand, the signature line, her name printed beneath it, Natalie Brooks Sullivan. She stared at it for a moment, then slowly, deliberately, she signed. Natalie Brooks. The pen moved cleanly across the page. No hesitation, no second thought. Just a quiet decision, a line drawn. Not about money, not about power, about identity, about who she chose to be. She folded the document and slipped it into her bag. Then she exhaled. For the first time in a long time, it felt like she could, not because everything had been fixed, but because she no longer had to shrink herself to fit into something that had never respected her. The city moved around her. Cars passing, people talking, life continuing. And this time she moved with it, not behind it, not hidden inside it, just present, free in a way she hadn't been before, not from the marriage, but from the version of herself she had tried to protect inside it. Grant watched her from the doorway, small now, distant, not because she had changed, but because he finally saw how far away she had always been. He had just never looked closely enough. Natalie didn't notice him, or maybe she did, and chose not to turn around. Either way, it was the same. She kept walking, and she didn't stop. If you've ever been underestimated, this story was never just hers.